Don't worry, Snuffy. One hot summer day, a tall yellow bird named Big Bird and a big furry Snuffy Pegasus named Snuffy climbed onto the number 6 Sesame Street bus. Big Bird had a backpack on his back. It was stuffed with 2 sleeping bags, food, some pots and pans, and a few dishes. Snuffy was carrying a long pole wrapped with canvas. He held it tightly in his snuffle as he made his way to the back of the bus, saying, "Excuse me and pardon me." He was being very careful not to bump into anyone. "We are going to have so much fun on our camping trip," Big Bird said as they found seats on the bus. He unfolded a map and spread it across his lap. "We are here. The Lazy Days campground is here. All we have to do is stay on this bus until we get there. We can't miss it." Snuffy looked at the map. "It looks easy enough," he said. "Of course it is," Big Bird answered. "Don't worry, Snuffy. Where will we sleep, Bird?" Snuffy asked. "We are going to sleep in our tent," Big Bird said. "Outside?" Snuffy asked. "Of course," Big Bird said. "You can't put a tent up inside. Sometimes you are a very silly Snuffy Pegasus." But Snuffy did not feel silly. He felt worried. He had never been camping before. He had never slept outside before. It was a long ride to the campground, and Snuffy was worried about missing their stop. "Bird," he said finally, "we're here." Big Bird and Snuffy stepped off the bus and looked around. Big Bird took a deep breath of fresh country air. "Isn't this great?" he asked. "I told you not to worry, Snuffy." Big Bird led the way as they walked to the campground office. The director said her name was Joan, and she showed them to their campsite. "If you need any help," she said, "just ask." Then she told them where they could go swimming in the lake. "There is a lifeguard on duty there," Joan explained. "Just follow the path with the orange signs." Snuffy and Big Bird waved goodbye to Joan. "Now all we have to do is set up camp," said Big Bird. "Do you know how to put up the tent?" Snuffy asked. "Don't worry, Snuffy," said Big Bird. "It's easy. Just watch me." Snuffy watched. He tried not to laugh when Big Bird got one side of the tent up, and the other side fell down. He tried hard not to laugh when Big Bird got tangled up in the canvas and fell down. "Why don't I hold the middle pole with my Snuffy while you tie the sides down?" Snuffy finally suggested. "Thanks, Snuffy," said Big Bird. "Let's cooperate." Soon the tent was up, and they had unrolled their sleeping bags. Snuffy looked around. The tent was like a little house, he thought. But he wondered what it would be like to sleep in the tent when it was dark outside. "See," said Big Bird. "I told you not to worry, Snuffy. It's not hard to put up a tent. Now let's go find that place to swim," said Big Bird. "Okay," said Snuffy, and he followed Big Bird down the path to the lake. "Let's just walk across these stones," Big Bird said. "Gee, Bird," Snuffy said. "They look awfully slippery. Why don't we stay on the path with the orange signs like Joan told us to?" "Don't worry, Snuffy," Big Bird said. "This is a shortcut. Watch me." Snuffy watched as Big Bird stepped on the first stone. Splash! He fell into the water. "Quick!" Snuffy cried. "Grab onto my Snuffy, and I'll pull you out." In a Snuffy Pegasus second, Big Bird was out of the water and on dry land again. "I think we'd better stay on the path this time," Big Bird said. "Then you won't be worried, Snuffy." Soon they came to a lovely sandy clearing beside the lake. They waved to the lifeguard, and the lifeguard waved back. All afternoon they swam and splashed in the lake. Snuffy used his Snuffy to spray water over his back. Then he used his Snuffy to squirt Big Bird. "Wasn't it a great idea to go camping?" Big Bird said as they headed back to their campsite. Snuffy agreed that it was a good idea. In fact, he had so much fun swimming that he had forgotten to worry about sleeping in the tent. But when they reached the campsite, he began to worry again. "I brought hot dogs and marshmallows to roast over our campfire," said Big Bird. "Bird," said Snuffy, "do you know how to build a campfire?" "Don't worry, Snuffy," Big Bird said. "It's easy. All I have to do is rub 2 sticks together. Watch me." Snuffy watched as Big Bird found 2 sticks and began to rub them together. He rubbed and rubbed, but nothing happened. "Gee," he said. "It always works on television." Snuffy shuffled off toward the campground office. "I'll be right back, Bird," he called over his shoulder. Soon Snuffy returned with Joan. She showed them how to dig a deep pit, and then she started the fire. "You should always have a grown-up help you build a fire, and stay with you as long as the fire is burning," she told Big Bird and Snuffy. They asked Joan to stay for dinner, She showed them how to roast hot dogs and marshmallows on long sticks over the coals. After dinner, they sang songs around the campfire. Joan told Big Bird and Snuffy about the forest paths they could explore the next day. Then they looked up at the sky and wished on a star. Joan showed them how to find the Big and Little Dipper. "It's time for me to go back," Joan said. So she showed Big Bird and Snuffy how to put out the fire. They helped her shovel dirt into the pit to make sure the fire was out. As it got darker and darker, Snuffy got more and more worried. He wished he was back on Sesame Street, in his own Snuffy-Upagus bed. "What a great day," Big Bird said as he crawled into his sleeping bag. "I'm exhausted." Snuffy crawled into his sleeping bag too. He was surprised by how soft and warm it felt. He snuggled down deep inside it. He lay there very quietly, and tried hard not to worry. Snuffy could hear the gentle rustling of the leaves in the forest. He could hear the sound of a bird in a tree. He began to think about that bird in its nest. "That bird is camping out too," he thought. "It is safe and warm in its nest, just like I am safe and warm inside my sleeping bag." Snuffy began to think about all the other forest animals who were getting ready for bed. He thought about them so hard that he forgot about worrying. "Good night, Bird," Snuffy said. "Good night, Snuffy," Big Bird answered. But a few minutes later, Big Bird was still wide awake. "Snuffy," he said. "Yes, Bird?" Snuffy asked sleepily. "I can't go to sleep. It's too quiet here. I miss the sounds of the buses, cars, and garbage trucks on Sesame Street. I miss my nest. Isn't your sleeping bag soft and warm?" Snuffy asked. "Yes," said Big Bird. "Good. Snuggle down deep inside it," Snuffy said, and Big Bird did. "Now listen," said Snuffy. "Listen carefully. Do you hear the sound of that bird? She's saying, 'Cheep, cheep, go to sleep,' to her baby birds." Big Bird listened. He could hear the chirping sound of a bird in the forest. Do you know that there are rabbits putting their baby bunnies to bed in rabbit holes all over the forest? There are mommy and daddy squirrels tucking their little squirrels into their beds in their tree homes. "There are?" asked Big Bird. "Oh yes, Bird," Snuffy said. "There are all kinds of wonderful sounds in the forest, and all kinds of very sleepy babies. Bees are telling baby bees to stop their buzzing and shut their eyes. Little snakes are being told to stop hissing and to hush. Even the baby fish stop swimming and splashing as they get ready to go to sleep." Thinking about all those sleepy babies in their forest homes made Big Bird very sleepy too. "Don't worry, Snuffy," Big Bird said dreamily. "I'll be able to go to sleep now." "Sweet dreams, Bird," said Snuffy. The end.